Hello, hello, my name is Clark Heron, aka the Hairy Hobo, and welcome to the West Regionals first round picks. Today we'll be starting off, and as you can see the ring or the screen behind me. The first round of the East has been decided. There is a video if you want to look at each and every single one of those picks and figure out exactly why I picked them. Simply click on the video, and it should be in that same area on my YouTube channel where you probably found this one. So that being said, again, hit that little notification button, and you will get these new videos as they pop up. This is the second of 3 that we posted on Monday. As for the West, well, Gonzaga is top dog, and they earned it, but there was some questions about if they should be a #1 seed overall. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right on into the West region, and they will be in the play-in game depending on who wins that game in front of them. In all honesty, I don't see either of those teams challenging Gonzaga, so give me Gonzaga in the second round. That's a pretty easy pick. For the second game, the 8-9 matchup, always a coin flip of a matchup, Syracuse versus Baylor, and this one's interesting. I think the ESPN has this listed as a Syracuse as a 52-48 favorite at this moment. And I tend to have to agree. I like Boeheim's defense. He loves to play 2-3 defense. Buddy Boeheim is playing lights out over the last several games. Baylor, on the other hand, played in a very tough Big 12 this season, and I can almost guarantee this game's going to be very, very close. But in a close game against a very strong 2-3 defense, give me Syracuse to move on. A little bit of chalk. Now the game that everybody's going to be watching and want to be watching for a very high-scoring affair, Marquette and Marcus Howard versus Ja Morant and Murray State. Yes, you've got two players that are averaging at least 24.5 points a game. Marcus is even averaging 25 himself this season. This is a high-scoring affair. Now, it's going to be a little interesting because Marquette only has two players that average double digits this season, whereas Murray State has 4. Overall, I think Murray State has the better three-point shooters, and typically the 12 doesn't do very well against the 5. But again, Marquette has lost 5 of its last 6 games. They're really struggling of late. Give me Murray State and Ja Morant to outscore Marcus Howard. I like the upset here. Give me Murray State to move on. I like it. Let's go ahead and keep it there. Next matchup, Florida State versus Vermont. Florida State played out of their minds in the ACC tournament. Fell a little bit short, but they play great basketball, very well-rounded. This could be one of those teams that you could potentially see in the Elite 8 as far as I'm concerned. I like them moving on to face Ja Morant and the Murray State. Next up, we have Buffalo and the play-in game, either against Arizona State or St. John's. Again, if you watched my last video, there has been at least one play-in team who won the play-in game, went on to the first round, and won the next game. I don't see that happening here. Arizona State playing in a very weak Pac-12 conference this year. St. John's having its up and downs as well. They'll be facing a Buffalo team that is primed to win several games in this tournament, potentially being in the Sweet 16, I would imagine. Give me Buffalo moving on. Next up, Texas Tech versus the Northern Kentucky Norsemen. I am a Wright State graduate myself, so seeing them beat my Raiders was a little tough pill to swallow, but they deserved it. They have earned the right to go on and play Texas Tech, which is a team that was very surprised that they lost the very first game against West Virginia, and we will talk about that in more depth down the line. It's not going to affect them this game. I have Texas Tech winning this one fairly easily, but we'll talk about more about that history-making game that Texas Tech is now under a little bit of a curse, you could say, but I have them moving over Northern Kentucky pretty easily. Second to last game of the Western first round is you have Nevada versus Florida. And Florida played great in the SEC tournament. They actually played against Kentucky and Tennessee and LSU and played them very, very tough, and even tough against Auburn. Had that call been made at the end of that game in the SEC tournament, could have gone a little bit differently for the Florida Gators. As for Nevada, I haven't seen them play all year long, so I will admit that they have Mr. Martin that's averaging almost 20 points a game, a shade over 19 a game, so they can score. They really can. But according to some reports, they're a team that hasn't really fully figured out who they are, who they want to be. Won a lot of games this season, so can't really complain there. But when you have that kind of report moving around, that there's a potential that they could falter very quickly, and they kind of did during the middle of the season. This is ripe for the upset. Yes, give me Florida to move on over Nevada in the first round. And then last but not least, we have Montana, the 15 seed versus the number 2 Michigan Wolverines. Michigan losing a little bit of a heartbreaker by 5 points against Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament on Sunday. I don't see that being too much of an issue for them. I have them moving on against Montana. So a quick review of the West first rounds. I have Gonzaga moving on to face Syracuse, Murray State moving on against Florida State, Buffalo moving on against Texas Tech, and then Florida with the upset, then moving on against Michigan. So a couple upsets there. Not too bad overall, so let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket as we have it now. After 2 videos, the first round for both the East and West has been completed, as you can see behind me and above me, and I think it's that way. That way is where you can see it. And you can see my picks evolving. This bracket will be filled out in completion. Next video up, we will be talking about the second round games for both the East and West, as well as the Sweet 16 matchups as well. As for now, my name is Clark Heron, aka the Hairy Hobo, and I'm out.